What's up, 2K crew? It is that time of the week again, man. We got a great show. Got a great show. We're talking NFL free agency. Who won? Who lost? Who overpaid? And we're going to take a look at this quarterback carousel and kind of take a deep dive into the last handful of years and look at what's exactly going on with these first round quarterbacks. And we're going to be talking WBC to wrap it up. So let's get into it.
Turbo and 2K show.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. March Madness is almost here. Next week, can you guys and gals believe that it's March Madness? I mean, next step is the Masters, and then the following step to bring us into the spring season is the Major League Baseball kickoff, and I for one cannot wait. Cannot wait. Yeah, we've got the tournament. The conference tournaments going on right now. Got the old quad box up on the big screen. Next week, yeah, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. For next week, we're just gonna be shooting the shit and just watching games next week. Same time, Thursday, tip off of March Madness. Kind of give you an update on my bets as to where we are standing after the first half of the day. I can't wait. I cannot wait. And honestly, I'll be the first to admit this is the least amount of college basketball I've watched in a long time, a very, very long time. So going to be interesting to kind of hedge my bets and kind of see where we're going to go with a lot of these things. But you know what? That's what makes it so much fun. That's what makes it so much fun. So without further ado, I do have some news to get into before we get into our free agency talk, before we do our deep dive into the quarterbacks and talk a little WBC. So Tuesday was insane. Tuesday was absolutely insane, even though from the looks of things, I mean, there really isn't a whole, I mean, there's nothing, groundbreaking, popping off on Tuesday, but let's start with some NBA. This is from Adam Schefter. In non-Max Crosby news, which we'll get to here in a second, Bam Adebayo with 83 points tonight, the second most in a game in NBA history, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain. Now, prior to Tuesday, if you would have asked me, Turbo, does Bam still play in the league? I would have been like, no, not that I know of. Not that I know of. I mean, it seems like dude's been in the league forever. But kudos to him going for 82. And I know there's a lot of NBA fans that are kind of pissed off at the way it happened and the things leading up to him getting 82. Is that kind of Mickey Mouse? I don't know. It happened. It still needed to happen. So, yeah, kudos to Bam. Did not have that on my Tuesday bingo card or sports bingo card for the year or for his whole career, period. So, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, he obviously passes Kobe Bryant. Kobe had 81, even though he sat most of the fourth quarter. I think a lot of basketball fans would have loved to see him play the whole fourth quarter and kind of put that second place, if not over the century mark, completely out of touch. But it is what it is. It is what it is. That's probably the most NBA news you'll get, unless someone goes for 85. So kudos to Bam. Kudos to Bam. Now, in that tweet, Shefty kind of alludes to Max Crosby news. So let's rewind about 5 days ago. Schefter tweets, ESPN sources, the Raiders agreed to trade 5-time Pro Bowl defensive end Max Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for 2026 and 2027 first-round picks. The trade cannot be processed until next week, but it is in place. I mean, words are hard right now. And Crosby is expected to be a Raven with 2 number ones back to Vegas. Now, this was obviously the, why do I keep pushing that one? This was the big trade. I mean, we've, as NFL fans, have been kind of expecting this Max Crosby trade to whomever for at least year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2 seasons. You know, we were all, there's a lot of folks, myself included, they're like, Max Crosby is way too good of a player to be stuck in that hellhole of Vegas where they're not going to win any games. They are not going to see playoffs for quite a long time. And I, for one, want to see great players play in the postseason. And Max Crosby is one of them. Myles Garrett is another one. But when this news came out, it's like, okay, Okay, I can see that. What a great addition for the Ravens, considering their defensive woes. At least at the beginning of the season, towards the end of the year, they did kind of figure some things out, kind of buttoned up some of the holes that were in there, and just to add him to that defense with Kyle Hamilton and a lot of those other dudes just flying around, and in a division where we saw the Bengals, they always sputter. It seems like, and hold on. I've got to sneeze and it's not coming out. I don't want to blow your eardrums. But yeah, it seems like there's always. I mean, yes, the that division does beat up on itself. That division has good quarterback play, but it seems like whoever comes out of that division, aside from the one run that Joe Burrow went on, they don't get anywhere in the playoffs. And if you're Joe Burrow, holy shit, that is wow. The defensive ends he has to face 6 times a year, insane, insane. You have to face Miles Garrett twice, Max twice. I mean, and then TJ Watt twice. That's quite a lineup. That is quite a lineup. So six out of the 17 games, you're getting teed off on by three of the best in the NFL. And we've seen Joe Burrow get knocked around by lesser guys. And pretty much one of the reasons why he's constantly hurt is there's no protection. So if you're a Ravens fan, you're like, hell yes, this is awesome. We've got, Lamar's going to be, going to be back to MVP Lamar. We've got this going. We've got that going. This just lines up to, and they, with this trade, their odds changed to win the Super Bowl to be second behind, I believe it's Seattle. And you're just like, everything is lining up. Everything is lining up. This is completely awesome until this was, uh, this was yesterday. Ravens backed out of the Max Crosby trade. The photo here says the Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Max Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why would they back out of the trade? Well, as we know, Max Crosby had surgery. He didn't play the last handful of games for the Raiders. A lot of us thought that it was probably because he was banged up, but most of all, the Raiders wanted to tank so they could get that number one spot, which they did. Which we saw Max dunking a basketball at his home court inside of his house. So we're like, well, okay, this must not be that bad. And then the reports came out that he was absolutely pissed that they were asking him to sit out. And what we saw is that I guess the report is, and there's two sides of this coin, and there's probably the truth in between them, is that during the physical, the Raiders were like, we don't like what we see on this knee, so nope, not doing it, not doing it. And even McAfee had on one of the highly respected NFL doctors, and he's like, yeah, what did you expect? He had surgery. He's hoping to be back for training camp. Of course, he's not going to be ready right now. I mean, that's something you should have thought of at the beginning. So, what if it is on the injury side? I have a feeling it's one of those things where once the Ravens got him in house and looked at him, they're like, "Oh shit, this is worse than what we thought." Yes, we kind of expected, not to be 100%, and there was reports coming out that during the physical, he couldn't even bend over and touch his toes. But again, knowing that he's had surgery, this is kind of one of those things you expect. And if you look at some of the other deals that have come out, Daniel Jones signed. He must have passed his physical with the Colts, signing a 2-year extension. And there's a lot of other players that are banged up, that are recovering from surgery, that have signed deals and have quote unquote passed their physical. So is the whole injury thing now? Yes, the with these signings, you're just banking money. Like you're betting money that this player is going to be healthy, or at least as healthy as you expect him to be at this time during his rehab, and you project him to be, better moving forward. And they must have just said, Now with the Ravens, they're giving up 2 first round picks this year and next year, and money. So there's more to their equation than the Colts with Daniel Jones, and most likely a whole lot more money. But then you get the other side of the coin. Where the trade happened on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Trey Hendrickson still hadn't signed. And what a lot of folks heard was, well, maybe his number is coming down. And the Ravens were like, so you're telling me that we could get a different elite pass rusher for about the same money without giving up the picks? Okay, yeah, let's find out. Let's figure out something we don't like in that knee, and let's get those picks back. Whether that's true or not, I don't think anyone will probably never know. Probably never know. And it's rather wild to see. I mean, I don't recall anything ever happening like this. People are calling it a rug pull, people are calling it, whatever, but I honestly think there's some truth to that where okay, we might have pulled this trigger too early. And I don't know if there was a ton of teams lining up offering 2 first round picks for Max Crosby. Now it was rumored that the Raiders wanted 2 firsts and a player, kind of what the Cowboys got for Micah. And we saw the price be a little lower, obviously, in 2 first round picks. And one of those being a coveted 2027 pick, which that draft should be insane. This 2026 draft that's coming up should be good, should be deep, not a lot of quarterbacks, but next year's draft is it's going to be bananas. Going to be absolutely bananas. So for the Ravens to give up that pick, that's huge. And they're like, "Whoa, hold on. So yeah, we're trading for Max and we have to pay him, or we can just pay this other guy. Let's pay this other guy. Let's pay this other guy." And when it came, and this was literally moments later, the NFL tweets Ravens signing defensive end Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $112 million deal via rap sheet in the Arrow, Tom Pelissero. So was it a little bit of buyer's remorse? I think so. I really, really think so. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs or a lot of theories, but I'm buying into this one. I'm buying into this one because you would think that you would look over the medicals and talk to, and of course the Raiders. I'm sure they're probably telling everyone that's trying to trade for Max. Oh yeah, he's good. He's good. He's good. Just give us the picks. He's good. He's good. But when you're investing, over $100 million in 2 first round draft picks, do you think you might have wanted to do a little bit deeper recon prior to that? Now, I'm not a GM by any means. I don't know if those. I would assume that type of information is made available. I would hope so. So yeah, I honestly think this came down to buyer's remorse, and they're like, well, we have just as good of an option. Now you could rank Trey and Max in whatever order you want, but I think effectively they're both going to give you the same thing, different ways of doing it, but you're going to get the same result. So I do think it was buyer's remorse. I really do. This is from Bill's Chat Podcast. Hits the nail right on the head. Somewhere Bill Belichick is mad that he never thought of agreeing to fake trades to throw off the rest of the league's salary caps. In essence, that's exactly what this did. Now it's rumored, which I'm not so sure that that's the case, that after signing all of these guys on from free agency, the Raiders don't have enough money left to pay Max. Now I've only seen one tweet of that, so I'm not going to say it's the case, but as it sits right now, Max Crosby is a member of the Raiders once again. He even posted a nice little quip in the Undertaker gif. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. But maybe this is going to work out better for Max. The Raiders got a lot better during free agency. They released Geno Smith, which I think all of us kind of expected, considering they're bound. I mean, they're bound to draft Mendoza number 1 overall. So you get the number 1 overall pick, retool some stuff. This is probably going to be one of the better, if not the best, Raiders team that Max has been on. And they're only going to get better as Mendoza gets better, if you believe in Mendoza. So is it reports have come out that the Raiders are no longer entertaining trades for Max, which understandable, because if you're one of the other franchises that were kind of in the Max Crosby sweepstakes, are you ponying up 2 first-round picks? I don't think so. Not after one team did, and then it's like, nah, no. Even if it was buyer's remorse, that has to be a red flag to every other NFL team that was in this process. Now you're like, all right, I'll give you a first this year and a 2 next year. That would work better for the trading team, but not the team trading, because you wanted 2 first-round picks and a player, settled for 2 first-rounders. So of course, why not hang on to him for 1 more year, prove that he's healthy, and increase that stock? And who knows, maybe next year you'll get even more draft picks. So as far as keeping him, I think it is in the Raiders' best interest, because the interest for Max Crosby, the interest is there, yes, but the capital you get back for the trade is not. It just isn't. It just isn't. So that's kind of the news. So let's do a deep dive into this free agency, because it was pretty wild. Kind of do a brief overview for each team. I'm not going to go over, each individual signing here. Let's start off in the AFC East. The Bills. The big thing here is they had the DJ Moore trade, and they signed Bradley Chubb. 2 very good pieces. The Dolphins. That's not the one I wanted. Here it is. This is from Ian Rappaport. Sources: the Dolphins are signing Packers quarterback Malik Willis as a new quarterback has landed in Miami. He gets a 3-year, $67.5 million deal with $45 million fully guaranteed, in contract negotiated by David Mulugeta of Athletes First. And is Malik? I almost called him Malik Neighbors. Does Malik Willis make Miami better than when they had Tua? Now, Miami has already released Tyreek Hill, so the Cheetah is out, and he's another one that's hurt, so we might not see him get signed for a while. But on top of that, they eat $99 million releasing Tua. So this is from NFL Memes. This is insane. $67 million is the entire Miami Marlins team payroll. $99 million Tua Tagovailoa's dead cap hit. Now, what the Dolphins and some of these other teams that are releasing these quarterbacks that do have a big dead cap hit to them is kind of doing what Denver did, and with Russell Wilson. Take that big cap hit, and where Denver was in position to draft a quarterback in Bo Nix, get him in on the cheap, you can still field a very, very good, very competitive team, and with a very awesome coach in Sean Payton, they were able to make the playoffs the last 2 years. So, very similar thing happening here. However, the Dolphins didn't do that. They're eating $99 million and signing a vet to a very high-priced deal in Malik Willis. I've never been a Malik Willis guy, and the reports coming out of Green Bay where he spent last season was that he was a very good teammate. He's a very good player. People loved him. And when he was on the field, he played well. But is he 18 or 17 game starter good? Now you can say Tua wasn't that in Miami. But I honestly do not think that Miami is better off with Malik Willis as compared to Tua. I just don't. I just don't. But that was kind of their big splash here. I mean, and it was who everyone kind of thought that Malik was going to land with. The Patriots, they signed Romeo Dobbs in his big ass helmet, 4 years, $70 million, and also releasing Stephon Diggs. So this is Romeo Dobbs' time to shine, time to be that number one receiver that I think a lot of Packers fans were hoping he would mature into, hoping he would develop into, and never really did. And him leaving the Packers is going to be a huge hit. Now, do they? I'm not sure that they have replaced him, or if they're looking to the draft to replace him. But him leaving, and he had some great games. He had some great games as a Packer. So will that translate over to New England with a whole different regime there and a hot upstart quarterback, hot upstart team? We shall see. We shall see. Jets get Geno Smith back. Acquired in a trade with the Las Vegas Raiders. You could honestly say that Geno Smith's the best New York Jets quarterback since Geno Smith. Geno is basically a stopgap quarterback, a 1-year rental, if you will. I would expect the Jets to be picking in the top 3 next year, and with the quarterbacks that are coming out next year, it's going to be a phenomenal draft class. So, if that's what you're trading for, then cool. Then cool. They franchise tag Brees Hall. I mean, they made a number of other signings, and they they received Minka Fitzpatrick via trade from the Dolphins, and then signed him to a 3-year, $40 million extension. But this is just the Jets being the Jets. I mean, if you're any one of these guys that signed in free agency to be a part of this Jets team, you kind of have to realize that this year's gonna suck. And if you're sucking if you suck enough this year, are you gonna have a new head coach next year? Seems to be that way. Seems to look that way. Let's go to the AFC North. The Ravens, like we said, the whole Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson. Snoop Huntley re-signed with him. Durham Smythe. But there wasn't a whole lot of other moves done by the Ravens. Bengals filled some gaps, got some help on the offensive line, the defensive line. The Browns got a lot of offensive help, pretty much a whole offensive line. Question is, who's going to be the quarterback there? Is it Shedeur time, or is it Deshaun Watson time? Is it Deshaun Watson time? Pittsburgh Steelers signed Rico Dowdle. Love that. Love that. Traded for Michael Pittman Jr. from the Colts. Extended Cam Hayward. Extended Asante Samuel Jr. I like all the moves that Pittsburgh did. Now, the one thing that you don't see on there is quarterback. Is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Are they going to address it in the draft? Seems to me that, or is it Will Howard's team to go? I mean, what's the quarterback situation look like in Pittsburgh with Mike McCarthy as the coach? We shall see. We shall see. AFC South. Texans traded for David Montgomery, which we talked about last week. Made a lot of moves on the defensive side. Signed 2 offensive tackles, much needed. I'm sure CJ Stroud is going to love that. And a guard. And a guard. Signed Daniil Hunter, edge rusher. Love that. Colts just recently, I believe yesterday, re-signed Daniel Jones to a 2-year, $88 million deal, which could be worth up to $100 million with incentives, which includes $60 million guaranteed, $50 million in year 1. And they had originally placed the transition tag on him. They re-signed Alec Pierce, who was the top wide receiver free agent. So good for them. And they re-signed him, but traded away Michael Pittman Jr. And then signed some folks on the defensive side. Jacksonville loses Travis or ETN. They re-signed DJ Dallas and signed Chris Rodriguez Jr. And I made a couple other little moves. The Titans were active. The Titans were active, but never fear. Cam Ward, never fear. Mitchell Trubisky is here. Signed a 2-year deal. Wan'Dale Robinson, 4-year deal. Let's see here. Got some help on the offensive line. Bunch of defensive guys. Punter Tommy Townsend. AFC West, Denver re-signs J.K. Dobbins and Lil Jordan Humphrey. They pretty much re-signed all of their players. They didn't make any like really new, sign any new free agents. They just re-signed a bunch of players. Kansas City Chiefs. They get the Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III, 3-year, $45 million deal, 28.7 guaranteed. Travis Kelce's taking that tractor another round. Signing a 1-year, $12 million deal with a max value of 15. The one thing you don't see on this list is offensive line help. Raiders signed Jalen Naylor, 3-year, $35.03 million. Tyler Linderbaum, center, big signing there. Nakobe Dean, linebacker, 3-year, $36 million. Chargers. Do see some offensive line help here. Trevor Penning, Cole Strange, Tyler Bayazes. Sorry, Tyler. And Trey Pipkins, who resigns. Resigned Khalil Mack. Let's go to the NFC. Dallas Cowboys franchise tag George Pickens. I'm sure that's going to go over really, really well. Landed Rashawn Gary in a trade with the Packers. Brandon Aubrey signed a $5.76 million restricted free agent tender, meaning other teams can sign him to an offer sheet, but Dallas will have the right to match it. Cool. That's about it there. Oh, they re-signed Javonte Williams. That's a big deal. The Giants, Patrick Ricard, 2 years, $7.63 million. Isaiah Likely, tight end, signed 3-year, $40 million deal. Can be worth up to 47.5. Eagles, not a whole lot here. Commanders, Rashad White, Treylon Burks, both signed 1-year deals. Laramie Tunsil signed a 2-year, $60.2 million extension. They were busy. The Bears, they signed Khalif Raymond, 1-year, $5.1 million. Offensive line help, defensive line help. Love that. Detroit Lions, they signed Isaiah Pacheco. This one's kind of weird. 1-year, $1.81 million deal. That's cheap. Now, you might be asking yourself, last week we talked about them moving on from David Montgomery, and this Isaiah Pacheco is the answer. I could see it. Way different style of runner. Runs angry. Wants to be called Taz. I get it. It fits. It fits. And for that price tag, it's worth a gamble. Because as we've seen, Pacheco the last 2 years has spent more time on the IL than actually playing. And I think he's going to find that the offensive line in Detroit is much improved compared to the offensive line in Kansas City. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen Kansas City running backs not be so successful is because the offensive line sucks. And not to say that the Lions have the best offensive line in football, but they're up there. So this Pacheco sighting should be, it's either going to be a home run or a dud because he's either going to play a lot or he's not. And if he plays a lot, this 1 year deal is a home run. Home run. All right, Green Bay Packers. Not a lot here. Re-signed Javon Hargrave, 2 year, $23 million. The Vikings. The Vikings. Let's see here. Adam Schefter tweeted, former Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray is signing a 1 year deal with the Vikings per sources. Murray now will become part of the quarterback room that includes former number 10 overall pick J.J. McCarthy. With Murray already owed $36.8 million from Arizona, his 1 year contract with the Vikings will be for the veteran league minimum. So this is kind of one of those where you have two basically quarterbacks on the cheap because Kyler's getting paid from Arizona. So is it worth the gamble? Yeah, I think so. Kyler's upside is huge. Now, this is going to be on Kyler because this is his one chance to kind of get that second chance away from who drafted you. And you were a free agent, so you could sign wherever. He's walking into a very good situation with KOC in Minnesota. And he's going to at least compete for the starting spot. Now, there's a lot of folks that are just going to hand him the keys right now. But I think J.J. McCarthy is going to have a little to say about that. The only downside is that Kyler has not been the most ultimate professional when it comes to the quarterback room and just his habits. Let's put it that way. His film watching, all of that stuff, all the intangible stuff, the off the field stuff, which as a young quarterback like JJ, that's probably what you need. Now, granted, he sat behind some guys and has had tutelage there because he hasn't been on the field that much. So I just hope that Kyler takes this chance and runs with it, literally and figuratively, and gets that breath of fresh air and get out of Arizona and show us what, like we talked about last week when we were talking about, I mean, kind of in jest, but not really, going back to baseball and playing for the A's. Because if you're not good enough to play for the Cardinals, you're going to walk in and be the starting quarterback for the Vikings. We shall see. We shall see. But I had a very good feeling that 90% of everyone's just going to be like, oh, Kyler's going to, like, I just got an alert here. Excuse me. Free agency reaction. This is from ESPN Fantasy. Will Kyler Murray be a top 10 fantasy option? So they're automatically thinking that he's going to just walk in and take that spot. Now, if JJ plays the way he did last year, then yeah, I could totally see that because JJ was not good last year. But I do think there's still something there with JJ. I'm not ready to write him off yet. I'm not. I am not. NFC South. Atlanta Falcons release Kirk Cousins. So what do they do? No, that's not what I wanted. But while we're here, they signed Tua. 1 year deal, vet min. This is from Pardon My Take. Tua meeting Michael Penix in the trainers room. And even though this is meant to be in jest, it's both have very viable injury concerns. Tua with the concussions, and just Michael Penix kind of being a walking injury risk, even when he was in college. So, is this the answer in Atlanta? Now, a lot of people in Atlanta say, well, the offense is tailored to Michael Penix being left-handed. Tua is a left-handed quarterback. It just makes sense. Why? Because they're the only two left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL right now. That shouldn't have anything to do with it. But if that's the hill you're going to die on, so be it. So be it. This Atlanta team is good. I just don't think Tua is going to make him better. I really don't. I really don't. Have one of the best running backs in the league. And if they throw the ball to Kyle Pitts for whatever reason, no one seems to do that, which he received the franchise tag. They signed Jahan Dotson, 2 years, $15 million, and also signed Austin Hooper and a bunch of defensive guys. Carolina signed Kenny Pickett. A bunch of guys re-signed. Let's see here. Isaiah Simmons re-signs. And just a lot of guys that re-signed. New Orleans Saints, they signed Travis Etienne, like I said, from Jacksonville, 4 years, $52 million. Tight end Noah Fant, 2-year deal. Some offensive line help. Tampa Bay. They signed Kenneth Gainwell. He was at Pittsburgh, 2 years, $14 million. Let's see here. They signed Alex Anzalone from Detroit, 2 years, $17 million. I know that made a lot of Lions fans upset. They were hoping Anzalone would stay with the Lions. And the Arizona Cardinals. Don't worry. They signed Gardner Minshew. 1 year, $5.75 million. Could be worth $8. Could be worth $8. Best part is that Gardner's in warm weather. I'm pretty sure it's Jort season all year round in Arizona, so he's going to be loving that. That mullet will look fantastic blowing in the Arizona wind. Jort's rocking. Love every bit of it. Love every part of that. They were quite busy. Offensive line help. Defensive line help. The Rams. Traded for their big acquisition was Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City gets a 2026 first round pick, 5th round pick, and 6th round pick, as well as a 27 third round pick. To which they extended McDuffie 4 years, $124 million. Now we've seen this story for Kansas City. This is like the second or third corner that they've traded rather than extending. So not a big shock here. And for the Rams, this is huge because it's like, okay, yep, we know that the Matthew Stafford window is closing. Whether this is going to this upcoming year is his last year or if he has one more after that. But arguably, you were the second best team in football last year. And almost made it to the Super Bowl with MVP Matthew Stafford. So in the game, especially that final game against the Seahawks, it was a scoring bonanza. So getting a lockdown corner makes sense. And even if this is Stafford's last year, you got him for 3 more years. So I don't hate the move. I don't hate the move. And it seems to be the motto of this Rams club, at least for the past handful of years, is fuck them picks. We don't need them. We don't need them. San Francisco signed Mike Evans to a 3-year deal. Love that. If you're Brock Purdy in that offense, you have to love that. Signed Dre Greenlaw, 1 year, $7.5 million. Re-signed Eddie Pinheiro, 4 years, $17 million. Seahawks re-sign Rashid Shaheed. It's about their big. They just re-signed. Yeah, basically re-signed a bunch of people. So that's it. That's now all of this pretty much happened on Tuesday, with some of the kind of the stragglers coming in on Wednesday. But it was a busy. But I don't think I received that quite that many Twitter alerts in quite a long time. So it was a frenzy indeed. It was a frenzy indeed. Now, the next thing I wanted to get into is I wanted to take a look back at a handful of the. I went back to 2019, and a couple of these, like last year and then 2024, are going to be moot. But let's just take a walk down memory lane and see, and just refresh our memories as to who the first round quarterback draft picks were. And let's pay attention to see if they're still with that team. Because what we're going to find is the vast majority of those first round quarterback draft picks are no longer with that team. And it's at an astounding rate. So let's take a peek at 2019. That was Kyler's draft year. He went 1-1. And Daniel Jones went 6th. He's no longer with the Giants. And Cruz. Dwayne Haskins, RIP, obviously no longer with Washington. And I think that was it for this year. Yep, that was it for that year. Now let's go to 2020. Joe Burrow went 1-1. Currently, he's still with the Bengals. There's a lot of people that are hinting it may be next offseason he might be moved. I highly doubt that, but that's what a lot of people are. That's the hill they're dying on. Tua goes 5 to the Dolphins. He's no longer there. Herbert goes 6 to the Chargers. He's still there. I think that was it for this one. Nope. Jordan Love. Almost forgot about J Love. Jordan Love is still with the Packers. And all of those guys have been extended. So we've got three of them so far. So not a bad rate in 2020. Not a bad rate. A keep rate, we'll call it. Now, 2021, Trevor Lawrence goes 1-1. He is currently still with the Jags. Zach Wilson was taken 2. He is no longer with the Jets. Trey Lance was taken 3rd, no longer with the Niners. Justin Fields was taken 11th, no longer with the Bears. And Mac Jones was taken at 15, no longer with the Pats. Now, if you remember, leading up to this draft, this was supposed to be, rival one of the greatest quarterback drafts of all time. Overall, this draft class has stunk. Trevor Lawrence has been okay. We saw some glimpses of what I think a lot of folks wanted to see out the gate last year. Kind of the second part of last year. It's like, okay, maybe Trevor's figured this out. Maybe he's figured this out. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got all the intangibles to be an amazing elite quarterback. He just hasn't been able to put it together. So is he going to use that as a stepping stone to this coming year, kind of be the complete come out year of Trevor Lawrence? If you're a Jags fan, you're hoping so. That Jags team should be very good. Very good. And the Jets are the Jets with Zach Wilson. I think the only saving grace for the 49ers is they did take Brock Purdy in this draft at the very last draft pick, and he was the saving grace of this whole thing. So, yeah, it could be a whole lot worse. Could be a whole lot worse. So definitely not the draft class we thought granted, there's a ton of other guys that are absolutely amazing in this draft, but just the quarterbacks, like I said, this was supposed to be a historic draft class, one that we look back on for generations. And it's been crap. Let's look at 22. Quarterback does not go number one overall. That was Trayvon Walker. And we've got to cruise quite a ways down here until we get to. Was there just one quarterback taken this year? Kenny Pickett at 20. Yeah, this was Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. And Malik, I don't think went until the third round. I think that sounds right. But this was not, and if we're being completely honest, I wouldn't have taken either one of these guys in the first round, period. Kenny had a handful of games at Pittsburgh where he looked like, and that would have been the most perfect Pittsburgh story. A guy who went to Pitt, goes to the Steelers, and just balls out for the next decade. That is the Pittsburgh story. But it just didn't work out. Just didn't work out. And even when he was at Pitt, I didn't think he was that great. Period. So for everyone that was so high on him, I just didn't see it. I just didn't see it. And you could go back on this show. We've been around for this long. In 2022, yeah, we were definitely around then. And 2Ks and I went back and forth on if we think either one of these guys are first round worthy. And if memory serves me right, neither one of us thought that either one of these guys should go in the first round. So let's look at 23. Bryce Young's 1-1. He's still with the Panthers, shockingly. CJ Stroud had the amazing rookie year, has not gotten back to that, but did make the playoffs last year. Anthony Richardson is, I guess you could say, still currently with the Colts, even though they've told him he can explore trade options. So I don't expect him to be on the Colts at the time of when the season starts. So is that a fair? We're just going to count him as not on the team. I'm making an executive decision. He's no longer on the team. And I think those are the only two. And then of course 2024, all of these guys are still with their respective teams. Caleb Williams goes to the Bears 1-1. Jaden Daniels to the Commanders 2. Drake May to the Pats 3. Pretty sure all of those, and JJ number 10 to the Vikings. And Bo Nix number 12 to the Broncos. So far, I mean, you could say that JJ's kind of not panned out, and I honestly think if he would have hit the ground running and stayed healthy his rookie year, we'd be talking about a different JJ McCarthy right now. And we'd also be talking about a completely different quarterback room in Seattle right now. Jaden Daniels had the amazing rookie year, but that was again one of those we talked about it with Drake May this year, having that terrible or that very weak schedule for the Commanders 2 years ago. So he kind of came out the gate just guns blazing and did very well. This Commanders team made the NFC Championship game, for crying out loud. And then this year it was riddled with injuries, and we saw this Commanders team kind of come back to normal. But I think overall Commanders fans are still quite happy with their quarterback. New England has fallen in love with Drake May. I mean, you can't argue that. Oh, I forgot Michael Penix. Michael Penix went 8. I forgot Michael Penix. And he's still currently with the Falcons, at least for the time being, until Tua takes his job, allegedly. And Broncos fans are in love with Bo Nix. So there's good fits everywhere. Good fits everywhere. Now let's look at 25. Cam Ward goes 1-1 to the Titans. And is that the only one? I believe he was the only quarterback. Yep. Only quarterback taken. And let's be honest. he's still a work in progress. Did he have some good games last year? Yeah, yeah. But there's a reason why the Titans were picking 1-1 is because they were absolutely terrible. So to think this kid's going to step in and just be a savior when there's a whole bunch of other bad players around him, that's not the case. That's not the case. So the jury's still out on Cam Ward. So what I'm saying is this, and the whole reason for this exercise is we're seeing a lot of these quarterbacks. Now, granted, a lot of them have come prior to a lot of these, especially considering last year in 24 and 23, where they're still under their rookie contract. So they're on the cheap. So to release them now would kind of be silly. You still have very unproven talent, still very cheap. But with the guys prior to them, the guys that have just recently signed extensions, we're seeing not a very good hit rate on any of them. I mean, Joe Burrow, yes. Trevor Lawrence, kind of. And is that going to be now? Granted, this isn't going to deter any GM from extending their rookie quarterback if they feel that they're good enough. But is there something? This begs the question: if a lot of these guys are becoming what you could consider a bust, or at least a bust for your organization, does the blame land on the shoulders of the talent evaluators for those organizations, or is the college style of quarterback play, is it translate to the NFL less than what it did? And yet even NFL quarterbacks these days don't go under center a lot. It's a lot of shotgun, it's a lot of pistol, it's a lot of moving pieces. So the NFL has kind of adopted a lot of this, spread them out and huck the ball 500 yards a game. But is it is that college style of offense really preparing quarterbacks to make the transition into the NFL? Now, I obviously don't have that answer. That answer's far above my pay grade. But when you have, especially with quarterbacks, when you draft them that early, and if you look at a lot of the guys that these teams could have drafted, that could have been, you know, milestones for your franchise for a decade. Excuse me. Which, yes, that's what you wanted that quarterback to be in the most, important position in all of sports. And just shit hasn't panned out. And if you look at a lot of these guys, they've had multiple head coaches, multiple offensive coordinators, multiple offenses. So could it be that it lies more on the NFL staff than it does kind of the bring up of a quarterback, the maturing in college to be ready to make that jump into the NFL? I really don't think you can put the blame on either shoulder here. I think it lies somewhere right in the middle. And when I was putting this together, I'm like, man, it has to be the college. It has to be that the college offense does not translate into the NFL like it did in the past. And yeah, when we talk about draft busts, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks most of all. Why? Because quarterbacks are taken very high every single year because the teams that are terrible need quarterbacks. So they're going to take the next best quarterback, the guy they're hoping to hitch their reins to for the next 15 years. Yeah, that's the goal. And we see teams do that. But those guys, it seems like there's more quote unquote busts than there are home runs. But I guess that's draft, baby. Yeah, that's the draft. Excuse me. And I think it really does have a lot to do with take Kyler, for instance. How many, head coaches has he had? How many offensive coordinators has he had? It's a lot because Arizona's been bad. They've been bad for a while. Tua, a little bit more stability there with Tua, but still, that Dolphins organization is just who knows who the hell's running them. So I do think that the lack of preparation in college leads a little bit to this. But I think ultimately it's the organizations that are, I'm not going to say ruining these guys, but kind of wasting the first 4 or 5 years of their career. Now, hopefully, new faces, new places, that whole second chance, breath of fresh air, whatever you want to use there. I hope that these guys take advantage of that, and I hope that they're successful. So, will it come true? Who knows? Excuse me. Well, let's end the show with the Little World Baseball Classic. When I read that Mark DeRosa, the coach of the USA, pretty much said the game against Italy was more or less just an even bigger exhibition because the United States has already locked up one of the top two seeds in their pool, and they're moving on to the quarterfinals. Knowing full well that was not the case, I had to sit and wait. I had to sit and wait to see if the game last night, if Italy, excuse me, it came down to Italy versus Mexico, and for the United States to advance, Italy needed to win, or Mexico had to win. Mexico had to score 5 runs, and thank goodness the Italian boys, excuse me, decided to just obliterate the Mexican team for the United States to move on. And what kind of made it infuriating is, and as a fan of the game, you're like, this is absolutely bullshit. Why not just play the best team that you have against this team? Absolutely bury them. But you have to remember that this is the the backups. This is still their spring training too. And the backups on this team are starters for their respective major league teams, so they need time too. I get that. That's as part of the caveat of being the manager of any of these teams that have multiple MLB players on it. And we've seen a handful of pitchers now since pool play is over return to their team, and we've brought other pitchers in, and comes down the first elimination game is against Canada. Now, wouldn't it be a kick in the dick? Rewind a couple weeks ago, United States beats Canada in both the men's and the women's hockey in the Olympics to win gold medals. Wouldn't it be the ultimate kick in the dick if the Canadians beat the U.S. baseball in the World Baseball Classic? Yes, we beat them at their sport. Granted, it was to win the ultimate prize in that tournament, but it would just be a slap in the face if the U.S. loses. Now they're not, or they're favored to win by a lot. Excuse me. Been waiting for that thing for about an hour now. Sorry about that, but yes, this would be the worst possible. I would have much rather lost in pool play than to lose to Canada at any point in time in this tournament. So, boys, buckle up. I believe it's tomorrow is when the quarterfinals start. So, boys, it's time to go. It's time to go. We cannot lose to the Canadians at our sport. And I'm sure they were saying that exact same thing in the Olympics, but this is our time. This is our sport. We need to get it going. And I have a very good feeling, Mark DeRosa, you better have learned your lesson and know all of the rules going into this and know what's going on. Let's put our best guys out there. Let's bring this home. And if the US does win against Canada and the Dominican beats whoever they're playing, I can't remember right off the top of my head, we'll have Paul Skeens starting against the Dominican squad. How electric would that be? So let's make it happen, boys. Let's make it happen. All right. I do have a couple other things here that I did want to get to. I screenshotted them, so we might as well talk about them, or at least show you. This is from Ghetto Gronk. Daniel Jones NFL contracts, 2019 Giants, 25.7 million over 4 years. 2023 Giants, 160 mil over 4 years. Last year Colts, 14 mil for 1 year. 2026 Colts, 10 or 100 million for 2 years, for a grand total of almost $300 million. Daniel Jones at the end of 2027 will have earned almost $300 million as an NFL quarterback. Picture that. Picture that. We already talked about Mike Evans going to the 49ers. Love that signing. We talked about that one. We talked about that one. We talked about that one. There's Alec Pierce, 4 years, 114 million. And the last one here is Super Bowl MVP running back Kenneth Walker signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, one thing that I will kind of say on that to kind of wrap that up is the Chiefs, I believe, pick at 9 or 10. And Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, has been projected to go to Kansas City. So I think that this just kind of puts that into question, whether, and I don't think it's so much they don't think he's good. They don't think that they really want him. I just think it picked 9 or 10. They don't think he's going to be there. And they don't want to try to trade up to get a running back. They just rather sign one. And I have a feeling if he's there for them, they're still probably going to take him. So there's a lot of people that are a lot of insiders, if you will, that have Jeremiah Love going in the top 4 now. So I was really hoping for him to be a Chief. I really was. All right, well, 2K Crew, we'll get you out of here on that. Everyone have a fantastic day. Everyone enjoy your week, enjoy your weekend. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.